What's up? It's Mippy here and welcome to a new video of mine where I'm going to showcase a new build that I've been cooking. And this build is really amazing because it's designed to speed farm tier 70 to tier 80 very efficiently. That's a bit higher than what we have seen with the poison speed farming build that I did about a week ago. And I think this build right here, which is the Frostbitten Death Trap builds, utilizing no imbuement but still twisting blades and combo, is going to be one of the best builds to use when season 1 drops, because it's really good in a sense that you can transition from leveling to speed farming and even to then potentially tier 100 with this exact build. And it has a lot of defense, it has a lot of damage. It's really well rounded. You can farm Hell Tides with it efficiently as well. It's probably a little bit faster than the poison speed farming as well. And let's get right to it. So the general idea of the build is that you engage the mobs, have them chilled by Penitent Greaves, and then you place down a trap, which triggers exposure if you hit an enemy affected by the trap, which drops these little stun nades that actually do stun the mobs, and these count as a grenade skill. And that's where our aspect Frostbitten comes in, which actually, if a chilled enemy is hit by any grenade skill, we have a chance equal to double our critical strike chance to be instantly frozen for 2 seconds. And we also deal increased critical strike damage to frozen enemies. And with around 40% critical strike chance, this chance is already at 80%, and it's not a lucky hit, it's guaranteed. So this basically triggers all the time once the enemy is already chilled by Penitent Greaves. And by that, they get frozen instantly, and all of our damage modifiers come into place. We play +3 Frigid Finesse, which also increases the damage against the enemies done by a significant amount. And that's a very strong combination. So for this build specifically, we use Death Trap, we use Shadow Step, we use Dash, Poison Trap, Puncture, and Twisting Blades. And you could say we also use Dark Shroud because we use Umbrus on the neck, but we don't have it on our skill bar equipped. Quick overview for the gear. We use Might on the helmet with no surprising rolls here, just max life, total armor, cooldown reduction. We do use basic skill attack speed because we do not use an imbuement. So we use that to reduce our cast time from Puncture and be able to just be quicker with our punctures in general. Then we use Frostbitten on the chest. Also very regular rolls here for speed farming. Just damage reduction, total armor, damage reduction from distant enemies, and damage reduction from close enemies. Also we use rubies to increase our maximum life. The gloves are no surprise here as well. We obviously use Shared Misery to spread all of our crowd control, all of our freeze, all of our stun, and all of the good stuff that we apply to all the enemies. We have Disobedience. We do not use Disobedience on the neck because we don't go into tiers higher than 80. For the stats here, I would ideally have distant damage reduction instead of poison damage reduction, but I did not get the roll. So if you have pants that have distant damage reduction, then it's even better than this one. For the boots, we use Penitent Greaves. Penitent Greaves is really great because it gives us the chill trail that we then use to chill the enemies, have exposure drop stun nades on them, and then they get frozen by Frostbitten. And if you don't have Penitent Greaves, you can use regular boots with movement speed, energy cost reduction, all stats, and damage reduction when injured. And for the aspect, you would use Ravagers to gain an additional Shadow Step. Also, if you don't have Penitent Greaves, you have to use Cold Imbuement to get the chill elsewise. For our crossbow, we use the regular Blade Dancer's crossbow, vulnerable damage, all stats, critical strike damage, and dexterity. We use the all stats here in order to reach the breakpoints on the 5th Paragon board, which I will show you once we get to the Paragon. For the necklace, we use Umbrus as an aspect. We definitely need 3 ranks of Frigid Finesse and cooldown reduction, and the other 2 rolls are basically up to preference. I have damage reduction from distant enemies here, close damage reduction would also be fine, and I have energy cost reduction Here you could take movement speed, you could take armor. You have to use something out of the pool that basically fits your need. And I think the ideal one would be ranks of frigid finesse, cooldown reduction, armor, and damage reduction from distant enemies. For the rings, we use retribution. Our grenades that drop from exposure stun the enemies a lot, so we benefit from the 40% multiplier here. We want vulnerable damage, critical strike damage, resource generation, and critical strike chance. And the second ring, we use Umbral because we have a lot of CC and we gain a lot of resource back when we CC the enemies with Umbral. Here we also use vulnerable damage, resource generation, critical strike chance, critical strike damage. If you don't have rings with resource generation here, or you want to be a little bit more tanky, you can also use the same ring, but for instead of resource generation, just use maximum life. Our sword is an accelerating sword with critical strike damage, dexterity, vulnerable damage, and damage to close enemies. Our other weapon is Condemnation. We can use that to bank up combo points before the enemies are frozen to basically one-hit them. Alternatively to Condemnation, you can also use Ashiara's Conjure, especially if you're farming lower tiers, and it's also great for Hell Tides. If you want to run a potion in a dungeon, you can either use an Iron Skin Elixir if you're a little bit low on armor, or you can use an Elixir of Fortitude if you have armor rolls on basically all of your gear where you can have it. As for the skills, we use Puncture to apply slow and vulnerable. Then we obviously use Twisting Blades, which is our main damage dealer. We use the Daze upgrade here because we can spread the Shared Misery. We use 3 ranks of Sturdy and 3 ranks of Siphoning Strikes to stay alive and heal ourselves back up in higher tier dungeons as well. Shadow Step with a Stun upgrade, which is also then spread by Shared Misery and helps us with dealing more damage with the Retribution. 3 ranks of Weapon Mastery. Dash with the increased critical strike damage upgrade. We use one of each from Concussive, Trick Attacks, and Rapid Gambits, because we do not have boots that have multiple evades. We want to reduce the evade cooldown whenever we daze an enemy, which happens really often when we spread it with Shared Misery as well. Then we put points into Dark Shroud and their upgrades to gain movement speed. We do not have Dark Shroud on our skill bar, but Umbrus procs gives us stacks of Dark Shroud, which really helps us mitigate damage during the dungeon and move faster in between packs. Then we use Poison Trap with just the Enhanced Poison Trap upgrade. We do not need one of these upgrades because we don't play Imbumens. Use 3 points in Exploit and 3 points in Malice. Then we take 1 point in each of these. If you feel like you're a little bit squishy, you could also put 3 points into Debilitating Toxins, but that's based on how well you think you can handle the incoming damage. We also put 3 points in Frigid Finesse to deal increased damage against shield enemies, and this bonus is doubled against frozen enemies, and a 60% multiplier is really strong. Then we put 3 points in Innovation for our energy economy. We also use 3 points in Trap Mastery to gain increased critical strike chance. And we use 1 point in Adrenaline Rush to gain access to Haste, which we put 3 points in. And then we take Death Trap to also trigger Exposure. Our key passive here is Exposure. Whenever we lucky hit an enemy who is affected by our trap skills, we have a chance to reduce the cooldowns of our active traps and drop a cluster of stun grenades that deal damage and stun the enemies. These stun grenades then proc our Frostbitten aspect, which instantly freezes the enemies if we have enough critical strike chance. So for our Paragon board, we use the Closer glyph on our starting board. Then we go into Tricks of the Trade, pick up the Legendary node, and we use Devious on this one to gain increased damage against crowd-controlled enemies and to boost all of the magic nodes on Tricks of the Trade, which gives us a lot of armor and a lot of damage against elites. Then we also pick up Brawler and exit the board to the top, where we pick up Deadly Ambush, which we socket Diminish in to let us increase our damage against trapped enemies and also reduce the damage we take from trapped enemies. Then we also take Spring Loaded to make our traps proc faster. And then we move to the right to Cheap Shot, where we pick up the Elite Damage Reduction, where we socket in Control, which lets us deal increased damage to slowed or chilled enemies, or even 20% increased damage to stunned or frozen enemies. We also pick up Devious and Wilds, and then we exit to the bottom to go into Exploit Weakness, where we take the damage directed from vulnerable enemies, take the increased vulnerable damage, and we socket in Turf to gain additional close damage and close damage reduction. And also we pick up the vulnerable damage here as well. This is our 5th board. You have to pay close attention to have enough alt stats to be able to pick up these nodes here. If you do not have a crossbow that has enough alt stats, you can also use alt stats on the helmet instead of basic skill attack speed to make yourself reach these nodes easier. Then we go into No Witnesses. We don't pick up the legendary node here, we just use it for the glyph socket, in which we socket combat in. That gives us energy back when we critically strike with our core skills, and also increases our critical strike damage with our core skills. We pick up knowledge here, and don't go any further into this node. At the bottom of Exploit Weakness, we exit for Cunning Stratagem, which we socket Exploit in to gain the nice bonus of having the enemies vulnerable through it, and also get an additional 100 armor. For our specialization, we use combo points, because it's more overall DPS, and it also gives us another benefit of moving faster whenever we hit an enemy with Twisting Blades. So in this clip right here, you will see me attempt a Gul'ran Canals, which it only took 4 minutes for, tier 80. And as you can see, I'm already trying to get might up. I'm spamming puncture while I'm entering. I engage mobs with Shadow Step usually, and then I place a trap if there's multiple enemies around. And if not, then I'll just let them get hit by Twisting Blades and clear any Stranglers. For small packs, I usually don't use Draft Trap, I just damage them with Twisting Blades. This is a really big pack. I try to group it up, have it chilled, and then it instantly gets popped by all of the damage I have because it's frozen. I clean out the Stranglers. And also right here, you can see the crits going really high when the enemy gets frozen. I did have nudging and weight, which made grouping the mobs a little bit difficult at sometimes, but it was still okay. This room gets a little bit sketchy, but nothing that I couldn't handle. I couldn't activate the lever because there was a lot of poison damage on me still. Again, trying to stack up might and disobedience beforehand. This is a really good big pack. I try to pull everything together, have it frozen, and then just let Twisting Blades clear them out. The damage against structures or bosses is not as great because they're not affected by draw control, but as you can see here, this elite at the bottom, which was frozen, got deleted pretty much instantly. And that's pretty much it. 4 minutes, Gul'ran Canals tier 80. It's pretty decent. Could have been slightly faster, but That's the general target you should be aiming for. Just clearing the dungeon in like 4 to 5 minutes if you're speed farming to have the optimal loot per hour. So yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and good luck trying the build out, and I hope you'll enjoy. And here's a quick overview of what gear I used. And with that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.